So, shall we talk some Parsha?
Sure, let's go.
In this week's Parsha, after last week, we started preparing for Moshe's death, and Am Yisrael is getting ready to get into Eretz Israel. This week's Parsha, we get to another thing Am Yisrael has to do before Moshe dies, which is fight with Midian, and a little bit more preparations before Am Yisrael goes into Eretz Israel. But just before that, for some reason, the Torah decides to give us a Parsha about Nedarim, about vows, oaths, shvuos. And not only does it give us that Parsha, it also starts off with a very unique passage by saying, Dabel Rashei HaMatot, talk to the leaders of the nation, which is a question, who are we referring to? There's a machloket in the Rishonim. Who are those leaders we're talking about? But still, we have to understand, why is this Parsha here? What is this Parsha doing right here in the context of everything that's going on and with the preparations of entering Eretz Israel?
Yeah, so it really seems out of place. We're just about to say goodbye to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is about to give his final speech, Sefer Devarim, and we suddenly have this Nedarim, and it really feels out of place. But I think that if we try to look at the essence of what is Nedarim, why does someone come and suddenly feel the need to do a Neder? So for 40 years in the desert, Moshe Rabbeinu is there. Whenever Am Yisrael wants to know what they should do, what they shouldn't do, how much they should do, how much they shouldn't do, they always looked up to Moshe Rabbeinu, who would tell them what the halacha is, what the mitzvot are. It all came right from Moshe Rabbeinu. When Am Yisrael goes into Eretz Israel and doesn't have Moshe Rabbeinu, suddenly they're looking at their lives, they have certain challenges, they see difficulties, they feel sometimes the need to make a certain vow, to make a neder, to sort of add certain obligations upon them because Moshe Rabbeinu isn't around to do it for them. And here comes in a major question, because Nedarim is often not seen in such a positive light. Because if we think about it, when someone is making a neder, he's basically looking at the present. He's not God. He doesn't see future. He sees the present. He sees the conditions he has now. And he makes a vow which is eternal. He makes something and says, I'm never going to do this. Do you really know never? Do you even have the capability of even looking at never? Mitzvot are unique to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, are unique to Moshe Rabbeinu providing to us. It requires the ability to see from the beginning of time till the end of time. It's great to want to take things upon yourself, to look at the situation and see how you could improve. The problem with the neder is because it's a certain moment in time and you decide what I see now is eternity. What my limited perspective at this moment is reality. That's all there's going to be. I'm never going to see things in a different way. And we know that the essence of canceling a neder, of hatarat nedarim, is where they try to say, yeah, but you know that when you said that, you had a certain perspective. You didn't really see the full picture. If you did, would you have done that? And the answer is no, of course not. So in essence, a neder is a human being with a very limited perspective, looking at what he sees now and saying, this is it. This is reality. So maybe just as we're about to enter Eretz Israel, we're about to not have Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu comes and says, there's only one Torah, and that's Torah that comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You want to take things upon yourself? Words have power. Words have meaning. You can't just say things. Think about what you're saying. Realize the limitations that you have as a human looking at a situation, and be very careful before taking upon yourself things that are for a lifetime, for eternity.
Yeah, you're right. You know, if you think about the future, what happens on in Sefer Yehoshua, and even more so in Sefer Shoftim later on, where Am Yisrael is spread it out Eretz Israel, and for 250 years, each one does whatever they want, and there's a gap between the leadership setting the tone and the individuals that are scattered around Eretz Israel. There might very well be this place for a system that lets each individual to set their own rules for the life they want to live. Some kind of a mini mitzvah system for themselves. And like you mentioned, it's interesting because in Chazal, Tanaim, and Moraim, we see two different views about Nedarim. We see the Gemaras that say that anybody who has a neder should quickly go and have it canceled. And then on the other hand, we have Rabbi Akiva, for example, that says that a neder is a good thing and it's a siyag l'prishut. It's a fence in order to become a better person in life. And like you mentioned, it's all about the perspective of the human being when they set that neder, especially when you come to be mefer, when you come to cancel the neder, they ask you, is this what you had in mind when you made the neder? Is this the way you were looking at the world? Was this your perspective in order to cancel that neder? And really, even today, when you think about things, maybe the other side of that coin is so many times we see the world in a certain view and it looks to us like it's definite, like this is the way things happen. And we think that this is the life that we have, and we really can't see any other way. And yet, a little bit later, we're surprised by different outcomes or by how things set. There's a lot of talk in the world about a second wave, how things are going to happen again. But people keep on forgetting that we are talking about waves. Waves go up and they come down. Life is circular. We find this in life so many times. And really, one of the essential concepts of Nedarim is that it's not forever. Life is dynamic. Life changes. And many times you think you are in a certain place. You have a certain perspective in life. You think sometimes you're stuck. Sometimes great things happen and good things happen. But always keep in mind that things can change. Always keep in mind that Baruch Hu has a different way for us. Baruch Hu has a plan for us. We don't always see it. We don't always understand it. But we have to remember that He's there and He's controlling the world, and things will change and will happen.
The same position that puts a person in a place of saying a neder, that's saying, what I see now is for life, also causes a lot of fights between people, because me seeing my perspective and saying, I'm never going to change that perspective. I'm ready to talk to you, but I'm not going to change because I know, because it's clear to me. And we know as you grow up in life, things that you were so confident about when you were younger, just by growing older, suddenly you see things differently. Changing that perspective and being cautious about that also, as we spoke about a few weeks ago, can change the way we talk with people. When I have a conversation with someone, I'm not just shouting what I want to say. I'm actually listening. I'm actually open to the fact that maybe I may change a little bit my perspective. I don't see everything. I don't know everything. Maybe that's why Moshe Rabbeinu turns to Rashi Hamatot, because the need for Nedarim is very much dependent on the lack of leadership. When things are going well, when there is an organized leadership, when Rashi Hamatot are doing what they should do, people don't feel a need to start inventing new rules for themselves and each one creating their own set of rules. When there's a lack of leadership, that's what everyone feels. If I don't create rules for myself, there'll be complete chaos.
It's interesting what you said about the Rashi Hamatot, because maybe that is the reason that the response to making a neder is going to the Chachamim to be asked about the neder and to cancel it. Like the Rambam says, if you make a neder, you build a bama, you build something big, but you have a mitzvah to go and ask about the neder, to go cancel the neder, to make that connection again between the individual and the leadership, to tell that individual that he's not alone in the world and that his perspective doesn't determine anything, and we live a life based on the perspective of the Torah that is much greater than that, based on what God has planned for us, which is much greater than our little perspective in life. And so right now, just before entering Eretz Israel, as Am Yisrael leaves the desert, leaves the magical land of the clouds, the man, and everything else, and each individual is about to live their own private life, Am Yisrael is reminded yet again that it's about what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has planned for us, and it's not about our little private perspective of how we see life, but things are a lot greater than that. Amazing, Yitzi.
Beautiful. Thanks.
So we'll talk next week again.